Good morning. Ahoy to you. All right, I gotta show you guys something real quick because I was looking at it last night. And I don't usually trade at night, but I was looking at charts. I want to go into Discord real quick because I took a picture of an old, or it was a photo of the Wave One Daily last night. And it was really interesting because I was looking at 60, it was 68.61 is what I was looking at on the Wave One Daily. And I thought it was really interesting because Um, we had some open states above pivot, but below vector. It was really odd. Let me grab the picture. And anyway, what I wanted to do though was look at that and see how we would have potentially reacted to touching those open states. Look at this. So I was looking at the ES Wave 1 daily, noticing we actually have some open states below vector but above pivot. So on this photo, and it's a little bit small, let me zoom in. So we opened up and 6861 was our Wave 1 daily vector. And I was like, well, okay. I was looking at that for like if we could stay above 6861, I would expect a little bit of bullish movement. And if we could hold below 6861, I would expect movement down. Obviously 6809, 6803 is like really far below 6861, but that was really interesting that those open states were there. And so anyway, this morning I wanted to look at the Wave One Daily first to see if we did get that revision below pivot because our pivot last night was 67.47. And so now on our Wave One Daily, we did make it below our pivot and had a revision of our pivot. And we actually no longer see those open states at 6802, 6804. So that was pretty interesting, kind of a cool example to see like how open states can change as we get revisions above and below pivot. And that's a pretty interesting, just like tidbit of lesson learned to be like, if you like have a target for an open state for shorts, say from like a gray box setup, right? Like our standard gray box setups are low percentage of probabilities of continuation in open states to like the top side or open states to the bottom side. If you do get those rejections or those bounces and you end up moving below vector and even below pivot, it's really important to keep looking at your fractals charts to make sure that you're looking at the latest and greatest information to see if things like pivot has changed, the vector location has changed when you move below pivot, and then, of course, any additional open states. So, kind of cool. I wanted to see this morning if that like 6803 area was still there as open states to the downside. And now, of course, that we have had that revision below pivot, we no longer have that. So, kind of an interesting thing to observe from how our wave one daily changes. Like, this is such a large time frame, but you can kind of still see how it does change over time, which is pretty cool. So one of the things I do want to say about the Wave One Daily, we don't see too much on it, right? We did get that revision below pivot overnight, um, or sorry, below vector, excuse me. We did get that revision below pivot overnight, and now we are seeing our vector currently positioned at 6837 and a half. Um, the only thing I'm seeing on here is we do have some open states all the way down at 6760, 6752, but there's nothing too inspiring on the Wave 1 daily, especially because we've just started making this L1. So our like odds of making like an L4 or L5 are relatively low. So or sorry, like it's not like we're like seeing like L4s or L5s coming into the chart like we saw a few weeks ago. So we're kind of just cycling around pivot on the Wave One Daily, which we've kind of seen on the daily chart. We've had a little bit of consolidation, like from a linear perspective as well. So don't really see any clarity here. So let's move into some of our slightly smaller time frames and see what we have there. So let's go look at our 7 wave 60. Okay. So we actually had an attempt to break above the top side of our yellow box last night. Um, whoa. We had an attempt to break above the yellow box, and I was actually watching this. This is a 1 hour chart. I was watching to see if ES could get above the yellow box for potential strength. Because there was like a lot of messy price action around like our vectors last night kind of open. Once I kind of saw that weakness, I really wanted to try to go short last night, but I know I don't really like trading ETH. So I ended up taking a gold trade with A Train last night, but I didn't end up trading ES. But we ended up seeing a break below yellow box and an eventual win. And so, to be totally honest, especially if we go into the 15-minute chart here, mechanically, our volatility metrics are actually working quite well today. We had attempts to break above the yellow box on the 15-minute and just had a bunch of wicks and a bunch of wicks. We ended up getting a 15-minute break below, came back up, retested some of our vectors up here, and then did get our yellow box win. So mechanically, the markets have worked really well last night during ETH. So I am excited to find some levels to see if we can get any good plays during New York session. One of the things I do want to note, um, today is Veterans Day. So if there are any veterans on the stream, thank you guys for your service. The one thing to note about that is the US does see it as a bank holiday, but only our bond markets will be closed today. So I was going to check to see if like equities were closing early. As far as I know, only our bond markets are closed today, and like equities, futures, everything like that is still going to be trading as usual. So the day should be normal, hopefully. Hopefully we have like good volume that we see like every other day. The other thing I wanted to ask you guys, did anyone take this short play at market open yesterday? Because in our Top Step TV morning market prep, I think the level was like 36 to 40 is what we mapped out. And then at New York session open, me and Goose noticed that there was a little bit of a revision. So we moved our gray box zone up to 38 to like 42. But we ended up missing this downside move, which it's whatever, right? Like it happens sometimes. But I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh, I wonder if anyone who just watched the Top Step stream ended up grabbing some shorts like a little bit early at this 35.75 because it was a nice move down. Um, okay, but enough about yesterday. Let's go look at levels for today. So we're trading currently at 68.38, 68.39. Go look at our 7 wave 60. Oh my God. Okay, Dark Horse, you missed it at 8:38. Yeah. We were just like watching it, and like I so bad wanted to enter a little bit early, but we were staying patient. And it was actually funny because I was about ready to invalidate and write off the trade before it ended up dumping. Because one of the things that I was watching, I was like, this gray box setup was really good, but Vector was like slowly climbing up towards our gray box. And part of me was like, I don't want to take this trade anymore because if I have a 6 point stop and my vector is like 7 points away from the bottom of my gray box zone, it was only going to give me a 1-to-1 risk to reward. And so I was like, well, that's not part of my like risk profile or my risk tolerance. And so I was like, if we get anywhere basically like less than like a 1.5 risk to reward, I was gonna kind of like cut it out. So our risk management yesterday was great, and we were able to kind of like analyze what was going on and why we would or wouldn't want to take the trade. But it sucks to watch your level get swerved and then dump like 30 points. Okay. But I'm over it. I'm over it. We're looking at fresh levels today. So we have our vector on our 7 wave 60 at 68.41. So we're actually just below our vector on the 7 wave 60 and on our current price. Vector's actually played pretty well. If we look at overnight, let's see, this is 11 o'clock at night. It was playing at 68.57, 52.51. So we've had a really nice trend down on our vector on our 7 wave 60-minute, and our candles have actually respected that vector level very well, which I do really like to see. I love that because like we see a nice trend on our 7 wave 60, and we've seen a lot of tests of that vector, but we've been holding below it well. Um, 68.31.84 is an open state that we created yesterday, I would say, is where this open state came from. We're seeing this as a potential double bottom. We never did reach that 31 level on the 7 wave 60 is what I'm seeing. We have this like 35 open state that we have been creating as we're making lower lows on the day. But the 68.31.84 is something we could potentially look at. 67.57 is a little bit too far down. The one thing is like we're not that far down on the 7 wave 60, so I'm gonna definitely see if we have other levels on some of our lower time frames before we just mark out 68.32 essentially, because we're not that far away from that level actually. Okay, let's look at our 20 wave. So 68.42 is our vector. We're seeing a pretty tight vector cluster so far between the 7 wave 60 and the 20 wave 15. Um, Look at that. We have another open state here at 68.31. So the one on the 7 wave 60 was 68.32. This one's a 68.31. That one's actually pretty old. It's 82 periods old. But look at that, guys. There's actually another one down here at 67.54 at the 2% odds. So that might actually be something worth marking, especially because on the 7 wave 60, if we go back to our bigger time frame, I think we had one. Yeah, look, we had one at 67.57. So we might actually make two zones today. We'll see. But we had that, let me zoom this in a bit. We had that one here at 31, basically 32 because it was at 31.84 and 57 or 58. The 20 wave, we have one at 31.06 and then 54. So I kind of like that. We can potentially make two zones because we're seeing density in two areas so far. I think this 31, 32 so far, based on our larger time frames, could be good potential for a scalp just because both on the 7 wave 60 and the 20 wave 15, we're just getting past our 50% odds. So we're really actually not that far down on those charts if we were to take that move. The other thing I do want to note is that we actually don't have a lot of resistance um, from really the 50% all the way down to the 2% on this particular chart. Obviously, it's a long way to move. That's almost 90 points, but I might actually keep an eye on that 67.54 for a while to see if like maybe in a couple days we could hit that area. But 831 looks good. We have a decent amount of blank space below it though. So if we do um, end up taking that and we break below, I could see some decent movement to the downside today based on those two charts. So let's look at the 10 wave 15. So 831, 832. We're seeing a little bit of a zone at 822. Let's zoom in a bit. We have some fresher ones here. Okay. So we had this low that we just made overnight, basically, because this is a 10 wave. So we made this open state just 3 periods ago, which was at 8:15 this morning. So 8:15? Yeah, it was like an hour ago, basically. Um, but otherwise, I don't really see anything on the 10 wave besides this 50% odds at this like 31, 32 area that we have been looking at on our other zones. We are seeing a few other open states at 68.22 and 68.14 as we're getting into our lower time frames. So we can see if there's any visibility down there. But 68.32 is still looking like a decent area. I would like to have an open state here, but it's nice that we do have percentage odds at least. And the one thing I don't love about the percentage odds though is that it's only 50%. Like I would prefer it to be probably at least 20% for us to have that as a clean confluence. So we'll keep looking. We're below pivot and below vector on pretty much most of our time frames as well, which I'm noticing, which I do like to see that we have a clean trend happening. Okay, so the same double bottom here at 36 that we made about an hour ago. And then we're seeing, look at this, this is really nice. There's an open state at 29, 29 and a half, and that 20% odds on the 7 wave 5. So I kind of like that. We could suddenly make our zone from like 29 to 32. Could be a potential cool area for a bounce. Let's go look at the 50 wave 1 minute. We have 2% odds at 29 and a 5% odds at 30 with those related clusters. We have closed all of those open states that are down in that zone, though. The only open state, wow, we'll extend some days out. The only open state we have is the one that we just made this morning. That's really interesting. There's maybe one, okay, there's one all the way down here, 6806 at the 1% odds. Let me just load a few more days to see if we can see anything else on the 50 wave one. Yeah, same story. 5806 is that open state, but whoa. But otherwise, we've actually pretty much closed all of our open states on the 50 wave one. So we're seeing pretty decent, like consistent trend between our bullish waves and our bearish waves on the 50 wave one. And we are currently below vector. Vector is really clean right now. This is at 68.41. I think even the 7 wave 60 was like 68.41. So our vector cluster is really, really tight, 68.42. So I really like that actually. We should definitely mark our vector cluster currently. Obviously it changes constantly, guys, right? So we don't want to be like holding our vector cluster as gospel. But I'm just gonna mark it real quick at 68, basically 41 to 42. We could probably do 40 to 42, but I'm gonna mark our vector cluster here, 41 to 42. Um, just because it's really tight. We don't really see that, which we haven't really had too much movement on on ES overnight. So that looks pretty bad, doesn't it? Let me try to make it a better color. Something that we could see here. Um, we had like pretty slow movement honestly on ES all things considered overnight. So I uh I get why our vector cluster is like as tight as it is. That would be a good rejection though. We're gonna keep looking though. I'm not trading right now. So let's go look at that 32 level because we're really close to that 32 level. Let's just go look at it one more time here. So we have that level from this one is like 30. What's that level? 68.31. So it's basically 68.32, let's say. We have 68.29 is our lowest. This is the 7-way 5-minute wave, that 29. So far we're 29 to 32. Nothing on the 50 wave. We have 29 to 31 with these percentage odds. We've got 31 at the 50 and 31. Okay, so guys, let's make our zone from 29 to 32. It's actually a really small zone. That's really neat to see how, what do you want to say, like how tight that zone is. We don't really see that. I feel like we usually see like 5 or 6 point zones. So let's go 32. I go down to 29. So if you guys were taking a vector reject off of like this little gray zone that we just mapped, um, I definitely think your main trim should be at this like 32 to 29 zone, um, with of course any sort of stops, a break and hold below that vector. But we've seen a pretty clean trend down, and we obviously have room to the downside because we just broke our average range. So it's not like we're like overextended or anything too terribly much. The one thing I will say though is if we do end up breaking below this zone, the zone is just a little odd, right? Because it's not that far down on the charts, but I feel like we also haven't seen super low volatility like this in a while, so it's okay that that level's there. But I would say if you guys did take this vector reject that we just mapped, main trim, if not full out, would be at 32, and then we would be looking for bounces at 32. One thing I am going to check though as we get into New York session is to make sure that none of these open states did revise. Um, as like we did see that very slight revision in New York session yesterday, which obviously the original play that we mapped out at pre-market would have still been valid. But see if there's any revisions there. And then one of the things I do want to keep looking at is if we can get a proper bounce above that, a revision back above pivot. And then during New York session, we'll definitely be looking for open states to the top side to see what kind of opportunity is up there. I think one of the things we should be watching as well is on our wave one daily. We do have that vector about 40. What do we have that? Is that 44? No, look, it's at 41. So clean. The vector is so clean right now. So we would want to be breaking like back above probably our wave one daily vector and then back above our wave one daily pivot to see what kind of bullish movement we have for to find another potential gray box rejection to the upside. So um all right, guys, that was a really quick and easy prep. These zones are super clean. It's a relatively small range, but I really did like with how tight that vector cluster was. If we can get that rejection down to this 32 area, I would really like that for a play. The one thing I will say for the folks in Ascend Premium, I will not be trading New York session on voice today. I have a couple friends coming over early. We're going to be going on a bike ride before it gets too cold for the rest of the winter. So I know that Goose and A Train will probably be on there trading though, and I know Goose will be looking at ES as well. So we got these levels marked for you guys to kind of make independent decisions this morning, but I will be taking the day off from trading in live voice. So, but as always, guys, if you have any questions, just please feel free to put them in general chat or in trading chat. Of course, if you guys are in our premium group. But yeah, happy to make some levels with you guys today, and I will chat with you tomorrow morning at around the same time. Have a great day, guys.